So everyone, welcome to Bookaccino Live for May. The huge presentation ready for you today. So many titles they're coming up in the next 4 weeks, and we've also expanded what we're doing for July as well. So let me just do this. And here we go. Let's start with your top picks from April's presentation. Not surprisingly, number 1 was Lisa C. with Lady Tan's Circle of Women. If you want to read first chapter of that book, you can jump on our website, lisac.com right now and take a look at that and read your first chapter. Next, again, not a surprise, The Spectacular by Fiona Davis. And based on how many of you came to the event with Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray, yep, The First Ladies was going to be right on the top of the list as well. The Only Survivors, Megan Miranda, ooh, that's a bets on selection. And you're going to see why. It was just so chilly. And it's set on one of my favorite places, the Outer Banks, which I may never look at the same way again. The Golden Doves by Martha Hall Kelly. Excited about this one. For another reason, I'm going to go see her on June 4th. She's doing a special event up in Connecticut. My book group is taking a road trip, and that's where we're going. And Nancy Horan, The House of Lincoln. This is one of our giveaway books earlier, and I am going to be interviewing her as well. So lots going on, lots to be talking about. Next, in our last survey, we asked you which of the following social media platforms you use on a regular basis. See, Facebook was the most used, Instagram, Twitter. Very few of you are TikToking and dancing away, and almost 29% said none of these. So when people say to me, you really can reach people on social media, I'm going to throw this slide up and say, just remember, there's a bunch of people that is not exactly what they're doing. So we're going to start out with fiction today, and we've got a great list of titles for you. Starting out with Tom Hanks, the making of another major motion picture masterpiece. And this is a novel, folks. This is not nonfiction. Part 1 of this story takes place in 1947. Troubled soldier returning from the war meets his talented 5-year-old nephew and then disappears for 23 years. Cut to 1970. The nephew, now drawing underground comic books, reconnects with his uncle and, remembering the comic book he saw when he was 5, draws a new version with his uncle as a World War II fighting hero. Cut to the present day. Commercially successful director discovers the 1970 comic book and decides to turn it into a contemporary superhero movie. Cue the cast. We meet the film's extremely difficult male star, his wonderful leading lady, the eccentric writer-director, the producer, the gopher production assistant, and everyone else on both sides of the camera. So you know with Tom Hanks, he understands the movie-making business. You know that when he's doing a book like this, you're going to be in and out of the movie-making process. Next, we've got Pieces of Blue. This was our yesterday summer reading giveaway book by Holly Goldberg Sloan. It's out this week. When Paul Hill drowns in a surfing accident, his broken-hearted wife, Lindsay, and their 3 children are left in huge financial trouble. Once Paul's life insurance finally comes through, Lindsay impulsively uses the money to buy a charmingly ramshackle motel in Hawaii. Teenage Olivia quickly develops a crush on a handsome but monosyllabic skateboarder. Well, monosyllabic, we're not surprised at that, are we? And 12-year-old Carlos reinvents himself as a popular kid named Carl. And Sina, the youngest, will do whatever it takes to protect her beloved motel chickens. But while the kids adjust, Lindsay's flailing. Then a handsome stranger rolls into the motel parking lot, and she's surprised to feel a long dormant part of herself stirring. She accepts his offer to help, unaware he may have secrets of his own. Sound like a perfect beach book, and I just love the cover of this book. I think it's just so beautiful. Next, we've got Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I am reading this book right now, and I think we're looking at another bets on selection. I've only been able to read this in bits and bytes, but even the bits and bytes, I just want to come back for more. Authors June Hayward and Athena Liu were supposed to be twin rising stars, but while Athena was a literary darling, June is literally nobody. So when June witnesses Athena's death in a freak accident, she acts on impulse. She steals Athena's just finished manuscript, an experimental novel about the unsung contributions of Chinese laborers during World War I. But what if June edits the novel and sends it to her agent as her own work? What if she lets the new publisher rebrand her as Juniper Strong, complete with an ambiguously ethnic author photo. Doesn't this piece of history deserve to be told, whoever the teller is? June can't get away from Venner's shadow, and emerging evidence threatens to bring June's stolen success down all around her. I'm at the part of the book where people are starting to figure out, how does she know the story? How did she come to it? And it's really, really interesting to see her panic ensuing about what's going on. Yes, she stole, but let's see how she feels about this as time moves forward. Next, we've got Summer Stage by Meg Mitchell-Moore. It's coming on May 23rd. Amy Trevino, a former aspiring playwright, now a high school English teacher, and occasional drama director, takes on a production manager role for her brother's play in an effort to mend rifting family relationships. Sam, Amy's daughter, was a child star who continued her pursuit for fame in a Manhattan TikTok house. Her sudden arrival back home is shrouded in secrets. Sam refuses to open up to Amy, deciding instead to join her uncle on Block Island for the summer. Timothy, Amy's brother and a successful and well-loved actor, is directing a summer production in a storied Block Island theater, and his famous ex-wife has the lead role. As they work together to ensure the production is a success, Amy, Sam, and Timothy are forced to grapple with their desires for recognition and fortune, stand up for what they believe art and fame actually mean, and discover what they really want out of life. Every time I think of this stage, I think about when I was back in high school in Lackadair, which was like a billion years ago. And we always put on these big stage productions. It was things we were known for. And there was nothing like the camaraderie of a cast getting together. So Ellen Hildebrand has called Meg Mitchell-Moore one of her favorite writers. So there you go, folks. Next, we've got Everything's Fine by Cecilia Rabess. It's on sale on June 6th. When Jess lands a job as an analyst at Goldman Sachs, she's less than thrilled to learn she'll be on the same team as Josh, her preppy white conservative sparring partner from college. But when Jess finds herself as the sole Black woman on the floor, overlooked and underestimated, it's Josh who shows up for her. Before long, an unlikely friendship forms between the two. Friendship that gradually turns into electrifying romance that shocks them both. Despite their differences, the force of their attraction propels the relationship forward, and Jess begins to question if it's more important to be happy than right. And then it's 2016, and the culture and political landscape shifts underneath them. And Jess, who's just beginning to discover who she is and who she has the right to be, is forced to ask herself what she's willing to compromise for love and whether, in fact, everything's fine. We have a joke in our house. When you sit there and say everything's fine, it really means it's not. My Magnolia Summer is by Victoria Benton Frank, and you're probably going to recognize her name because her mother was Dorothy Benton Frank, and she passed away so sadly a couple of years ago. Victoria's picked up the mantle and is writing summer books that come out on first one on June 6th. So in New York City, winter never seems to loosen its hold. And for South Carolina transplant Maggie, the balmy beach weather of April back home on Sullivan's Island feels like a distant memory, until a phone call from her sister Violet changes everything. Gran, the treasured matriarch, has fallen into a coma after a car accident caused by Maggie's troubled mother, Lily. But once Maggie returns, she finds that Sullivan Island holds even more secrets. The Magic Lantern, the restaurant owned and run by a generation of women in her family, is now rudderless, and her sister seems headed for a savage breakup. When the three generations of South Carolina women join forces, the family pillar Gran, troubled Lily, impulsive Violet, and redoubtable Maggie, anything is possible. There we've got My Magnolia Summer. Such Kindness is coming from Andre Dubus III on June 6th. Tom Lowe's identity and pride are invested in the work he does with his back and his hands. He's designed and built his family's dream house, working extra hours to pay off the adjustable rate mortgage he took on the property, convinced he's making every sacrifice for the happiness of his wife and son. Until in a moment of fatigued inattention, shingling a roof in too bright sunlight, he falls. In constant pain, addicted to painkillers, at the cost of his relationship with his wife and son, Tom slowly comes to realize that he can never work again. But if he's not a working man, who is he? He is not, he believes, the kind of person who lives in subsidized housing, though that is where he's ended up. He's not the kind of person who hatches a scheme to commit convenience check fraud, together with neighbors who he considers lowlifes, until he finds himself stealing his banker's trash. Who is Tom Lowe, and who will he become? And you've got Such Kindness. Next, you've got Watch Us Shine by Marissa de los Santos. It's coming on June 6th. Cornelia Brown is reeling from a terrifying act of violence when she gets word that her mother, Ellie, has been badly injured in an accident. She returns to Virginia to the house she grew up in, and in the weeks that follow, she watches her mother struggle to recover. In grief-stricken tones, Ellie begs Cornelia to bring her to the Northern Lights, and despite her confusion at this mysterious plea, Cornelia vows to do so. With the help of her prickly sister, Ollie, Cornelia embarks on a mission to piece together the lost years of their mother's life. Their quest takes them to unexpected places and into worlds of strangers whose lives Ellie touched and irrevocably changed. There you've got Watch Us Shine. Next, we're going to go to some historical fiction. And we're leading off with Atalanta, which is from Flatiron Books. It's on sale this week. This is one of our Mother's Day giveaway books. We've got 10 books that we're giving away for Mother's Day. Contest ends on Friday. So you're going to hear more about this later in the presentation. But believe me, if you're watching today, you want to enter. When Princess Atalanta is born, a daughter rather than the son her parents hoped for, she's left on a mountainside to die. Raised by a mother bear under the protective eye of the goddess Artemis, Atalanta grows up wild and free. Just one condition: if she marries, Artemis warns, it will be her undoing. Although she loves her beautiful forest home, Atalanta yearns for adventure. When Artemis offers her the chance to fight in her name alongside the Argonauts, the fiercest band of warriors the world has ever seen, Atalanta seizes it. The Argonauts' quest for the Golden Fleece is filled with impossible challenges, but Atalanta proves herself equal to the men she fights alongside, and she's swept into a passionate affair. She begins to question the goddess's true intentions. So there you've got from Jennifer Saint, out this week. Next, we've got The Postcard from Annie Barrest, and we had the pleasure of hearing her speak about this book at a preview event that Europa Editions did, and it is just a fascinating story. In January 2003, together with the usual holiday cards, an anonymous postcard is delivered to the Barrest family home. On the front, a photograph of Opera Garnier, and I'm really bad at French, guys, let's get real, in Paris. On the back, the names of Anne Barrest's maternal great-grandparents, Ephraim and Emma, and their children, Noemi and Jacques, all killed at Auschwitz. 15 years after the postcard is delivered, Anne, the heroine of this novel, is moved to discover who sent it and why. Aided by her chain-smoking mother, family members, friends, associates, a private detective, a graphologist, and many others, she embarks on a journey to discover the fate of the Rabinovich family, their flight from Russia following the revolution, here this journey to Latvia, Palestine, and Paris, and which emerges as a moving saga that shatters long-held certainties about her family, her country, and herself. I've got this one on my stack to read because she was such a good, it was so good to hear her talking about this story. She's French, and to just talk about this is what this is my family's story, and I was intending to pursue it. So there's the postcard. Good Night, Irene is from Luis Alberto Urrea. It's coming on May 30th. This is a much talked about book. In 1943, Irene Woodward abandons an abusive fiancé in New York to enlist with the Red Cross and head to Europe. She makes fast friends in training with Dorothy Dunford, a towering Midwesterner with a ferocious wit. Together, they're part of an elite group of women nicknamed Donut Dollies, who command military vehicles called clubmobiles at the front line, providing camaraderie and a taste of home that may be the only solace before troops head into battle. After D-Day, these two intrepid friends join the Allied soldiers streaming into France. Through her friendship with Dorothy and her love affair with a courageous American fighter pilot named Hans, Irene learns to trust again. Her most fervent hope is for all three of them to survive the war intact. So there you've got a very special book coming from Luis Alberto Urrea. Next, we've got Crow Mary, which is coming from, oops, I go do this, which is coming from Kathleen Grissom. It's on sale on June 16th. In 1872, 16-year-old Goes First, a Crow native woman, marries Abe Farwell, a white fur trader. He gives her the name Mary, and they set off on a long trip to his trading post in the Cypress Hills of Saskatchewan, Canada. Along the way, she finds a fast friend, makes a lifelong enemy, love that in like one full swoop, folks, and despite learning a dark secret of Farwell's past, falls in love with her husband. Then, on the eve of their return to Montana, a group of drunken whiskey traders slaughters 40 Nakota, despite Farwell's efforts to stop them. Mary, hiding from the hail of bullets, sees murderers take 5 Nakota women back to their fort. She begs Farwell to save them. And when he refuses, she takes 2 guns, creeps into the fort, and saves the women from certain death. Thus, she sets off a whirlwind of colliding cultures that pushes the love between Farwell and Crow Mary to a breaking point. So there you've got Crow Mary. She's by the author of The Kitchen House, by the way. Nancy Horan's The House of Lincoln. This is something that you're looking forward to. And I'm going to be doing an interview with her. It's coming on June 6th. Showing intelligence beyond society's expectations, 14-year-old Anna Ferreira lands a job in the Lincoln household, assisting Mary Lincoln with their boys and with the hostess duties borne by a wife of a rising political star. Anna bears witness to the evolution of Lincoln's views on equality and the Union, observes in full complexity the psyche and pain of his bold, polarizing wife, Mary. Along with her African-American friend, Cal, Anna encounters the presence of the Underground Railroad in town and experiences personally how slavery is tearing apart her adopted country, culminating in an eyewitness account of the little-known Springfield race riot of 1908. The House of Lincoln takes readers on a journey through the historic changes that reshaped America and that continue to reverberate today. Next, the book you're most looking forward to reading, everyone. It's Lisa C's Lady Tan's Circle of Women. It's coming on June 6th. According to Confucius, an educated woman is a worthless woman, but Tan Yuexian is being raised by her grandparents to be of use. Her grandmother is one of only a handful of female doctors in China, and she teaches Tan the pillars of Chinese medicine. From a young age, Tan learns about women's illnesses along a young midwife in training, Mei Ling, and the two girls find fast friendship and a mutual purpose. No mud, no lotus, they tell themselves. From adversity, beauty can bloom. But when Tan is sent into an arranged marriage, her mother-in-law forbids her from seeing Mei Ling and from helping the women in the household. Tan is to act like a proper wife, embroider bound foot slippers. Remember these from Snowplower and the Secret Fans, folks. Pluck instruments, recite poetry, give birth to sons, and stay forever within the walls of the family compound, the Garden of Delights. It's an absolutely fascinating book. And what's really interesting is Lisa was setting out to write a very different book that was going to require a lot of travel and a lot of international travel. And she cue the pandemic. What am I going to do? She has a number of books on her shelf, and she turned around and saw this one. And it was a book about this woman. And she said, well, let me use this as some reference and start reading this. And then she was surprised. I heard her on a talk last week talking about how much she was able to do by interviewing people by Zoom. And she couldn't even get into the UCLA library facilities, but all the people that were willing to come out and help her to write this book and to do the research behind it. Always very interesting. Her website's lisac.com. Read a first chapter out there, and she loves to talk to book clubs. So as you read, keep that in mind. And there's a special tea package going on again that she's done in the past with books. And there's a special tea package that has been created if you want to have a book club discussion with this book. Next, from Kristin Harmel, we've got The Paris Daughter. This is coming from Gallery Books on June 6th. In Paris, 1939, young mothers Elise and Juliette become fast friends the day they meet in beautiful, I'm going to butcher this, guys. Should have taken French. Bois de Boulogne. Okay, we're trying. Though there is a shadow of war creeping across Europe, neither woman suspects that their lives are about to be irrevocably changed. When Elise becomes a target of the German occupation, she entrusts Juliet with the most precious thing in her life, her young daughter, a playmate to Juliet's own little girl. But nowhere is safe in war, not even the quaint, quiet little bookshop like Juliet's Librairie des Rêves. Again, guys, no French. And when the bomb falls on their neighborhood, Juliet's world is destroyed along with it. More than a year later, with the war finally ending, Elise returns to reunite with her daughter, only to find her friend's bookstore reduced to rubble, and Juliet is nowhere to be found. What happened to her daughter in those last terrible moments? Elise's desperate search leads her to New York and to Juliet one final fateful time. Next, we've got the Radcliffe Ladies Reading Club coming from Julia Bryan Thomas. It's coming on June 6th. In Massachusetts in 1954, with bags packed alongside her heavy heart, Alice Campbell escaped halfway across the country and found herself in front of a derelict building tucked among the cobblestone streets of Cambridge. She turns it into the enchanting bookshop of her dreams, knowing firsthand the power of books to comfort the brokenhearted. The Cambridge bookshop soon becomes a haven for Tess, Caroline, Evie, and Merritt, who are all navigating the struggles of being newly independent college women in a world that seems to want to keep them all in the kitchen. When a member of the group finds herself shattered, everything they know about themselves is going to be called into question. So here we've got the Radcliffe Ladies Reading Club. Next, from Isabel Allende, we've got The Wind Knows My Name. I was lucky enough, along with Tom Donadio, to watch her last week where she gave a presentation during Library Journal's Day of Dialogue. And it really intrigued me to want to read this book. In Vienna in 1938, Samuel Adler is 5 years old when his father disappeared during Kristallnacht, the night his family loses everything. So child's safety becomes ever harder to guarantee. Samuel's mother secures a spot for him on the Kindertransport train out of Nazi-occupied Austria to England. He boards alone, carrying nothing but a change of clothes and his violin. Arizona in 2019. 8 decades later, Anita Diaz and her mother flee looming danger in El Salvador and seek refuge in the United States. But their arrival coincides with a new family separation policy, and 7-year-old Anita finds herself alone in the camp at Nogales. She escapes her tenuous reality through her trips to Azabahar, a magical world of her imagination. And meanwhile, Selena Duran, a young social worker, enlists the help of a successful lawyer in hopes of tracking down Anita's mother. It's a story of separation in 2 different time periods. Isabel was talking about her foundation, the name of which I will have to look up, but she has been actually working on a foundation that employs like lawyers to help people at the border, social workers to be helping people at the border, because this is one of her passions. Next, we've got Thrillers and Mysteries. And we're starting out with Karen White, The House on Prytania. Noah Trenholm may not be a psychic herself, but she spent enough time around people, including her mother, to know when ghosts are present. And there's definitely a few lingering spirits in a recently purchased Creole cottage in New Orleans. But with the sudden return of Sonny Ryan, Bo Ryan's long-lost sister, Noah has plenty to distract her from her ghostly housemates, especially when the tempting, yet firmly unavailable, Bo wants to mete out justice to those he blames for Sonny's kidnapping, asks Noah for a favor that threatens to derail her hard-won recovery and send her hurtling backwards. Torn between helping Bo and protecting herself, Noah doesn't realize until it's almost too late why the ghosts are haunting her house, a startling revelation that will throw her and Bo together to fight a common enemy. These books are set, this is a new series, the Royal Street series, set in New Orleans. She's doing a ton of events to promote this book, and there are events down in New Orleans as well. She went to school down there, has got a passion for the city, and it definitely comes through in reading these books. Eric Van Lustbader's got the third book, or I think it's the third book in his Eric Ryder series. And he's also got a Spotify playlist to go with this one that's up on his website. Evan Ryder is an extraordinary intelligence field agent, now working for the security arm of Parachute, a private company and the world's leader in the application of quantum technology. In the past, Ryder has done lethal battle in the modern global wars of power politics, extremist ideology, corrosive disinformation, and outrageous greed. But now she finds herself in a battle arena whose dangers, while less obvious, are greater than anything the world has seen before: the present and future war of weaponized quantum technology. When an elite Russian scientist and the American Secretary of Defense die at the same time, half a world apart, of explicable, sudden, catastrophic brain damage, the world's intelligence services realize that the quantum war has truly begun. There you've got the quantum solution. Next, from Kate White, we've got Between Two Strangers, a novel of suspense. It's coming on May 16th. I worked with Kate White years ago at Mademoiselle magazine. She went on to write those great cover lines that you saw from Cosmopolitan magazine for so many years. I didn't work at Cosmo, she did, but we remained friends. And she was writing for years before she left Cosmo and has continued that career. So here's what we've got coming on May 16th. Struggling artist Skyward Moore is flabbergasted when she receives a suspicious phone call from a lawyer she's never met regarding a private matter. It turns out she's the recipient of a large inheritance, a life-changing sum that will allow her to realize her long-held dream of becoming a mother. Who's her benefactor? Christopher Whaley. The late man's name means nothing to Skyward, and she has no idea why he would leave her in such an enormous bequest. Looking into his background, Skyward finally realizes they met once at a hotel bar and shared a one-night stand. They never exchanged numbers or even last names, and that was over a decade ago. She wonders if the inheritance is meant to be a message of some kind, but she can't imagine what it would be. I'd be into figuring out what that inheritance was. I'll be on that track. Next, from Emma Klein, we've got The Game. I think it's The Game. The Guest. I'm sorry, I can't see under this. The Guest. It's coming on May 16th. Summer is coming to close on the east end of Long Island, and Alex is no longer welcome. A misstep at a dinner party, and the older man she's been staying with dismisses her with a ride to the train station and a ticket back to the city. With few resources and a waterlogged phone, but gifted with an ability to navigate the desires of others, Alex stays on Long Island, drifts like a ghost through the hedged lanes, gated driveways, and sun-blasted dunes of a rarefied world that is at first closed to her. Propelled by desperation and a mutable sense of morality, she spends a week leading up to Labor Day, moving from one place to the next, a cipher leaving destruction in her wake. You may remember that Emma was the author of the book The Girls that came out a couple of years ago. Dying to get my hands on this one. It sounds like just like the other one. You want to see what she does next. Linwood Barclay, The Lie Baker. Everyone knows that we are huge Linwood Barclay fans here at Bookreporter.com. This is one of our summer reading books. I'm trying to think if it goes up today or tomorrow. Tom will have to give us a hint later on, but it's on one of those 24-hour contests. Your dad's not a good person. Your dad killed people, son. These are some of the last words that Jack Given's father spoke to him before he was whisked away by witness protection, leaving Jack and his mother to pick up the shattered pieces of their lives as best they can. Well, years later, Jack is a talented but struggling author. So when the U.S. Marshals approach him with a lucrative opportunity, he's in no position to turn them down. They're recruiting writers like Jack to create false histories for people in witness protection. I just have to do an aside here. I could just picture Linwood in this job. Let me see. What will I make you? Jack soon realized that this may be a chance to find his dad, but Jack's father hasn't made contact with his handlers recently, and they have no idea where he is. He could be in serious danger, and Jack may be the only one who can find him. So there you go, The Lie Maker. From Liv Constantine, we've got The Senator's Wife coming on May 23rd. After a tragic chain of events led to the deaths of their spouses 2 years ago, DC philanthropist Sloan Chase and Senator Whit Montgomery are finally starting to move on with each other. With their hectic schedules, they decide that hiring a home health aide will give Sloan the support and independence she needs after her upcoming hip replacement surgery. And they find the perfect fit in Athena Carras. Seemingly a godsend, Athena tends to Sloan and even helps her run her charitable foundation. But Sloan slowly begins to deteriorate, and as she becomes sicker, her uncertainty quickly turns to paranoia as she begins to suspect the worst. Why is Athena asking her so many probing questions about her foundation, as well as about her past? Could Sloane be imagining the sultry looks between Athena and her new husband? There you've got the senator's wife. Beware the Woman by Megan Abbott. Megan Abbott was on a panel with me out in Hampton's Whodunit. Love talking to her. She is like, you sit there and you think, oh, I meet this really sweet girl. And then you sit there and say, she writes these really edgy books. And I'm like, Megan, like, split personality or whatever. It's just, oh, I just love cultivating all these situations that people get into. And on May 30th, she's doing it once again. Newly married and with a baby on the way, JC and her husband, Jed, embark on their first road trip together to visit his father, Dr. Ashe. The moment they arrive at the cottage, snug within the lush woods, JC feels bathed in love and by the warm and hospitable Dr. Ashe. But their Adenic days finally take a turn when JC has a health scare. Swiftly, vacation activities are scrapped, and all eyes are on her condition. Suddenly, whispers about Jed's long-dead mother seem to eerily impinge on the present, and JC begins to feel trapped in the cottage. But are fears founded, or is it paranoia, or cabin fever? Or, as is suggested to her, a stubborn refusal to take necessary precautions. The dense woods surrounding the cottage are full of dangers, but are the greatest ones inside. So there you've got Beware the Woman. She's always got these threatening covers as well. Look deeply into that cover. You see what I mean. Next, from James Comey, yes, that James Comey, former FBI Director James Comey, comes Central Park West on May 30th. When a years-long case against a powerful mobster finally cracks and an unimpeachable witness takes the stand, federal prosecutor Nora Carlton looks forward to putting the defendant away for good. The mobster, though, has other plans. As a witness's testimony concludes, a note is passed to the prosecution, offering up information into the assassination of a disgraced former New York governor, murdered in his penthouse apartment just days before. It's enough to blow the case wide open and to send Nora into a high-stakes investigation of conspiracy, corruption, and danger. So does she do it? There we've got Central Park West. I've got Drowning from T.J. Newman. Who remembers Falling from T.J. Newman from a couple of years ago? Well, this time we've got another airplane-themed book. 6 minutes after takeoff, Flight 1421 crashes into the Pacific Ocean, and during the evacuation, an engine explodes and the plane is flooded. Those still alive are forced to close the doors, but it's too late. The plane sinks to the bottom with 12 passengers trapped inside. More than 200 feet below the surface, engineer Will Kent and his 11-year-old daughter are waist-deep in water and fighting for their lives. Their only chance at survival is an elite rescue team on the surface, led by professional diver Chris Kent, Shannon's mother, and Will's soon-to-be ex-wife, who must work together with Will to find a way to save their daughter and rescue the passengers from the sealed airplane, which is now teetering on the edge of an undersea cliff. There's not much time. There's even less air. Started reading this. This is one of those books that goes boom, 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 boom with action. I don't suggest reading it on a plane. I don't suggest reading it after you have watched the plane crash scene in Dear Edward. But by the same token, when you hear how the plane goes down and what happens, you might have you thinking about where you are sitting when you get on the plane the next time and how you're going to get to save yourself. I know, I could ruin a vacation. So sorry. Next, S.A. Crosby, who is the award-winning and New York Times bestselling author of Razorblade Tears, is back with a book called All the Sinners Bleed. It's coming on June 6th. Titus Crown is the first Black sheriff in the history of Sharon County, Virginia. In recent decades, Quiet Sharon had only 2 murders. Then, a year to the day after his election, a school teacher is killed by a former student, and the student is fatally shot by Titus's deputies. As Titus investigates the shootings, he unearths terrible crimes and a serial killer who's been hiding in plain sight. With the killer's possible connections to a local church and the town's harrowing history weighing on him, Titus projects confidence about closing the case while concealing a painful secret from his own past. At the same time, he also contends with a far-right group that wants to hold a parade in celebration of the town's Confederate history. So lots going on in this book, both the mystery and social history as well. The Girls of Summer by Katie Bishop is another one of our summer reading books. It's coming out on June 6th. Rachel has been in love with Alistair for 15 years, even though she's now married to someone else, even though she was a teenager when they met, even though he's 20 years older than her. Rachel and Alistair's summer love affair on a remote, sun-trapped Greek island has consumed her since she was 17, obliterating everything else in its wake. But as Rachel becomes increasingly obsessed with reliving the events of so long ago, she reconnects with other girls who are similarly drawn to life on the island, where everyone acted in ways they would never act at home. And as she does so, dark and deeply suppressed secrets about her first love affair begin to rise to the surface, as well as the truth about her time working for an enigmatic and wealthy man who controlled so much more than she ever could have realized. So there we've got this calm-looking cover of the books of summer, the girls of summer, and inside Katie Bishop has woven a tale. We shall read. Next, we've got The Whispers by Audrain. She's the author of The Push that came out, I guess it was 2 years ago. I will just say this about that book. I have never looked at Little Pink Mittens the same way again. Oh my gosh. So this is coming on June 6th. The Loverleys sit by the hospital bed of their young son who's in a coma after falling from his bedroom window in the middle of the night. His mother, Whitney, will not speak to anyone. Back home, their friends and neighbors are left in shock, each confronting their own role in the events that led up to what happened on that terrible night. The warm, altruistic Parks, who are the Loverleys' best friends, the young, ambitious Goldsmiths, who are struggling to start a family of their own, and a quiet, elderly Portuguese couple who take care of their adult son with a developmental disability and who pass the long days on the front porch, watching their neighbors go about their busy lives. The story spins out over the course of 1 week in the alternating voices of the women in each family as they're forced to confront the secrets within the walls of their own home, the uncomfortable truths that connect them all together. Can't wait to see what Ashley's done with this one. I enjoyed interviewing her the last time. I'm hoping to catch her again. I just have to read faster. Next, we've got some memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. Starting up with the Daddy Diaries from Andy Cohen. It's called the subtitle is The Year I Grew Up. One of Andy Cohen's most momentous years starts out with a hangover the morning after an epic New Year's Eve broadcast. I think we all remember one of those. But Andy doesn't have time to dwell on drama, as his role as a media mogul is now matched with the responsibilities, joys, and growing pains of fatherhood. Well, parenthood, fatherhood, both. With a 3-year-old son, Ben, and a daughter, Lucy, born in May, stories of late-night parties are replaced by early mornings with Ben, drama at the playground, the musings of a single dad trying to navigate it, having it all. All this is set against the backdrop of constant housewives drama, hijinks behind the scenes at Watch What Happens Live, a revolving door of famous faces, and a worried mother and newly minted grandmother in St. Louis. Yep, The Daddy Diaries by Andy Cohen. You can see him juggling the kids just like that now. Next, we've got King, A Life by Jonathan Aig is coming on May 16th. Here's the first major biography in decades of Martin Luther King Jr., the first to include recently declassified FBI files. Jonathan Aig gives us an intimate view of the courageous and often emotionally troubled human being who demanded peaceful protest for his movement, but was rarely at peace with himself. He casts fresh light on the King's family origins, as well as MLK's complex relationship with his wife, father, and fellow activists. He follows MLK from the classroom to the pulpit to the streets of Birmingham, Selma, and Memphis. He dramatically recreates the journey of a man who recast American race relations and became our only modern-day founding father, as well as the nation's most mourned martyr. So there you've got King. I will tell you that years ago, I was at the, I can't remember the name of the museum. I was in Memphis. And while I was there, we saw that was actually part of the museum was in the motel where King was killed. And it was just really, really, really interesting to see that, like, it was just this regular room. Everything's been preserved there. And to see, like, you know, this is exactly where a big piece of history happened in a few moments. Then we've got Life B, Overcoming Double Depression, a memoir by Beth Ann Frank. Beth Ann has been a friend of mine for years. Probably, it's definitely been for decades. And I read this book because I wanted to see, first of all, she was bearing her soul in the story about what happened and what she has come through on the other side. She was plagued by depression her entire life, and I never knew this about her. But it wasn't until her early 50s, the writer and book critic, Beth Ann Patrick, advocating for her own care, received a medical diagnosis that would set her on the path to wellness and stability. Recognizing the intergenerational effects of trauma and mental health struggles, she unearthed stories of her past in order to forge a better future for herself and her two daughters, dismantling the stigmas surrounding mental health challenges that can plague families into silence and resignation. Life B is an intimate portrait we haven't seen yet of lifelong struggle with depression, a midlife diagnosis, and a newly found strength. And most important, it's a life-affirming blueprint of how to accept and transcend the limitations of mental illness. You know, we hear so many classifications of children now, and you realize when a lot of us were growing up, none of that was happening. We weren't ever talking about mental illness. We weren't talking about challenges unless they were really, really grossly being able to be seen. And to know that this double depression that she outlines in this book has plagued her whole life and she's overcome it. Such an amazing story to see where you were before, where you were during, and where you are after. Next, we've got Meet Me Tonight in Atlantic City by Jane Wong, coming on May 16th. In the late 1980s on the Jersey Shore, Jane Wong watches her mother shake ants from an MSG bin behind the family's Chinese restaurant. She's a hungry daughter frying cab ragoon for lunch, a child seeking naps on bags of rice, a playful sister scheming to trap her brother in the freezer before he traps her first. That was a game. She is part of a family staking their claim to the American dream, even as this dream crumbles. Beneath Atlantic City's promise lies her father's gambling addiction, which causes him to disappear for days and leads to the loss of their restaurant. In her debut memoir, she tells this news story about Atlantic City, about making do with what you have and what you don't, and what it means to be both tender and angry, what is strength without vulnerability and humor. So Meet Me Tonight in Atlantic City. Got some July titles to look forward to. And as I said, we put together a lot of these this time round. I want you to be ready for summer. First, we've got Her Too by Bonnie Kissler. She's the author of a book that I picked as a Bets On selection. I believe it was last year, called The Cage. Might have been the year before. It's coming on July 4th. Kelly McCann is a high-powered lawyer whose specialty is defending men accused of sex crimes. Falsely accused, she maintains. Her detractors call her a traitor to her gender, but she doesn't care. The story opens, she secured an acquittal for a renowned scientist accused of sexually assaulting his female employees. But the thrill of her case is short-lived. That very night, she too falls victim to a brutal sexual assault. And almost as horrific as the attack is the fact that she can't tell anyone it happened, not without destroying her career in the process. Joining forces with her rapist's other victims, the shrewd lawyer plans to turn the tables on him. It's not only about justice. These wronged women are out for revenge, but someone, it seems, is out for them. And one by one, they find themselves in even greater danger. Bonnie Kissler is a lawyer by trade, so I can't wait to see what she does with this book. I so enjoyed The Cage. St. Martin's Press, we've coming on July 11th, Catherine Center's Hello, Stranger. Sadie Montgomery never saw what was coming, literally. One minute, she's celebrating her biggest achievement in life, placing finalist in the North American Portrait Society competition. The next, she's lying in a hospital bed, diagnosed with face blindness. She can see, but every face she looks at looks like a jumbled puzzle of disconnected features. But as she struggles to hope and hang on to artistic dream, work through major family issues, and take care of her beloved dog, Peanut, she falls in love, not with one man, but with two. Making judgment calls on anything right now is a nightmare. If only her life were a little more in focus, she might be able to have it all. So here we go. Hello, stranger. Which stranger are you? Next, we've got Windfall coming from Wendy Corsi Stubb, another summer reading title. This is coming on July 11th. When three former roommates reunite for a birthday weekend in Las Vegas, the lottery ticket they buy on a whim has the winning numbers, giving them $1 billion windfall. They turn to Shay Daniels, a sudden wealth manager who promises to guide them through the pitfalls of having more money than they could ever imagine. The trio travels to a secluded California mansion where Shay and her staff cater to their every whim. The house is purportedly cursed. The last place a missing movie star was seen alive. And their weekend turns to terror when they discover they're trapped. When history repeats itself and one of them disappears, the one who's holding the $1 billion ticket, the others must face the fact that either their friend has betrayed them or a predator is lurking. I'm still stuck on the back of winning the prize. I'm back there on the windfall. We'll see where we go from there, but $1 billion, folks. Next, we've got the block party coming from Jamie Day. It's another summer reading book. It's coming on July 18th. The residents of the exclusive cul-de-sac on Alton Road are tangled in a web of secrets and scandal, utterly unknown to the outside world and even to each other. On the night of the annual summer block party, there has been a murder. But who did it? Why takes readers back 1 year earlier as rivalries and betrayals unfold, discovering that the real danger lies within their own block. Nothing and no one is ever as it seems. And I love the tagline on this: you'll die if you miss it. And Ellen Hildebrand said this is like a firecracker on a hot summer night. There you go. Colson Whitehead, this is the Crook Manifesto. This is a continue of his book, Harlem Shuffle. This is coming on July 18th. It's 1971, and Ray Carney is keeping his head down. Remember in the other book, he was moving stolen goods. Well, that's over. The strict, straight up and narrow for him, until he needs Jackson 5 tickets for his daughter and decides to hit up his old police contact, Munson, fixer extraordinaire. Munson has his own favors to ask of Carney, and staying out of the game gets a lot more complicated. Flash to 1973. Pepper is Carney's endearing, violent partner in crime, but it's getting harder to put together a reliable crew. So Pepper takes on a side gig doing security on a blaxploitation shoot in Harlem. He finds himself in the freaky world of Hollywood stars, up-and-coming comedians, celebrity drug dealers, hustlers, mobsters, and hitmen. Go to 1976. Carney's wife, Elizabeth, is campaigning for a childhood friend, the former district assistant DA, and rising politician Alexander Oakes. When a fire severely injures one of Carney's tenants, he enlists Pepper to look into who may be behind it. Our crooked duo must battle their way through a crumbling metropolis run by the shady, the violent, and the utterly corrupted. We've got Crook Manifesto from Colson Whitehead. You know it's going to be quite a read. Next, we've got Cutting Teeth from Chandler Baker. She was the author a couple of years ago of The Whisper Network. It interviewed about that book, and this book is going to be a summer reading title. Darby, Mary Beth, and Ray are on a personal quest to reclaim aspects of their identity subsumed by motherhood, their careers, their sex lives, their bodies. Their children, though, disrupt their plans when an unsettling medical condition begins to go around the Little Academy preschool. The kids are craving blood. When a young teacher is found dead and the only potential witnesses are 10 adorable 4-year-olds, soon it becomes clear that children are not just witnesses, but also suspects, and so are their mothers. As the police begin to look more closely at the children's ability to bleed their parents dry, becomes deadly serious. They've got Cutting Teeth. Let's see, we've got Roses, and we've got, that picket fence covered in blood. Yep, we're cutting teeth. Sally Strange Diamond by Liz Nugent has been on the bestseller list in the UK for, I want to say, 9 weeks now, and it's probably going to be 10. And we're going to get to read it starting on July 18th. Spent time with her out in the Hamptons as well. And everybody is saying this is her best book. Lisa Jewell has called her a force to be reckoned with. So reclusive Sally Diamond causes outrage by trying to incinerate her dead father. Now she's the center of attention, not only from the Hunger media and police detectives, but also a sinister voice from a past she doesn't recommend. As she begins to discover the horrors from her early childhood, Sally steps into the world for the first time, making new friends, big decisions, and learning that people don't always mean what they say. Who is the man observing Sally from the other side of the world? And why does he call her Mary? And why does her new neighbor seem to be obsessed with her? Sally's trust issues are about to be severely challenged. I just love this. I love the way the woman, you notice she's wearing turquoise, folks, in the background, a little bit faded. I know that dress was just done for me. Got it. Next, from Sherry LaPena, another favorite author of mine. And I have to tell you, Sherry's one of those, what I call one sit read. Once I start reading, I'm not moving. It's coming on July 25th. I better mark the weekend and not have any plans. Title, Everyone Here is Lying. William Wooler is a family man on the surface, but he's having an affair that ended horribly this afternoon at a motel up the road. So he returns to his house, devastated and angry, to find his difficult 9-year-old daughter, Avery, unexpectedly home from school. He loses his temper. Hours later, Avery's family declares her missing, and suddenly the neighborhood doesn't feel so safe. And William isn't the only one on the street who's hiding a lie. As witnesses come forward with information that may or may not be true, Avery's neighbors become increasingly unhinged. Who took Avery Wooler? There we've got everyone here is lying. And in her books, believe me, you don't believe anybody. Next, from Laura Lippman, we've got Prom Mom, coming on July 25th, another summer grading pick. Amber Glass has spent her entire adult life putting as much distance as possible between her home of Baltimore, where she will be ever known as Prom Mom, the girl who allegedly killed her baby on the night of the prom after her date, Joe Simpson, abandoned her to pursue the girl he really liked. Got that one? But when circumstances bring Amber back to the city, she realizes she can have a second chance, as long as she stays away from Joe, who's now married. Problem is, Amber can't stay away from Joe, and Joe finds that's increasingly hard for him to ignore Amber. And against the surreal backdrop of 2020 and early 2021, two are slowly drawn to each other and eventually cross the line they've been trying not to cross. And then Joe asks Amber to help him do the unthinkable. So here we've got Prom Mom. These are our summer reading books. These are the summer reading books that we're going to be doing giveaways on. Each of the titles will be available for just 24 hours to win. Contests go up at noon, and they go down at noon the following day, 11:59 to be exact. So you've got to be within that framework to win, to enter. What you want to do is make sure you're signed up for our summer reading contest, or you have to check the site every day to see if that's one of the days of a contest giving away. And don't ask me the dates that everything's being given away, because I've proven I don't even know what's being given away today because I didn't open the email yet. I am bad. Tom Donadio will jump in and tell me later what that book is. Next, we've got a Mother's Day contest. Okay, which mom wants to win 10 books? I mean, 10 books. I'm actually going to take a picture of these. I think they're all coming in. I'm going to take a picture because they are all in my office, folks. These are all getting ready to be packed up. So right now, let's see, 10 times 5 is 50. I am going to have 50 books that are going to be packaged and given away. There will be 5 people that are each going to win these books. So you want to sit there and say, do I want to win these 10 books? Yes, you do. So go out to Bookreporter and enter our Mother's Day contest by Friday. Here are notable paperback releases that are coming out in May. Many of these authors I have interviewed. We're going to start with Bully Market, which is now available in paperback. I interviewed Jamie Fiore Higgins. This is about her life working at Goldman Sachs. We've got Fellowship Point from Alice Elliott Dark. I am interviewing her next week. I loved this book last year. I have so many folded down pages to talk to her about. And it's one of those books that I actually read really slowly because I love the writing in it. Next, we've got Helltown from Casey Sherman, which is now available in paperback. We got to see Casey when we were at the Hamptons Whodunit. This is the untold story of the serial killer on Cape Cod called Helltown. Sister Stardust is from Jane Green. When you finish reading this book, you want to feel like you also want to go to Morocco. Two Nights in Lisbon. Wow. Does Chris Pavoni pack a lot into this book in these couple of days, and you will be upended to see what happened. So this is a long book. It's a long thriller. He likes to write long books. He likes to read long books. And the way the whole story unfolds, it does not feel long. It feels like a story that's completely engulfed you. Vacation Lane by Meg Mitchell-Moore. Interviewed her about this book, set up in Maine. Remember, she told me that the Maine coast the water doesn't really look like that. But when you go to beach water, what are you going to do? Make it dark gray? Not going to work. William Ken Kruger's Fox Creek. This is the latest in his Cork series. Mary Kay Andrews, Homewreckers book. You know that you're always going to get some kind of home decorating going on in those. Jennifer Hilliers, The Things We Do in the Dark, interviewed her last year. And Mystique Island, Sarah McCoy also interviewed her. So of these, I've interviewed most of these authors. We'll be linking to those throughout the month as we feature these books again in paperback. Oops, no, I think I have to stop someplace else here. Hold on one second. Okay, we also have my early bets on selections. These are the books that so far I've said, I'm betting you want to read. Reef Road, The Mitford Affair, House Guest, Exiles, The House of Eve, Go as a River, All That Is Mine I Carry With Me, Pineapple Street, Loyalty, House Is on Fire, Things I Wish I Told My Mother, The Only Survivors, and Homecoming by Kate Morton. I just posted an interview that I did with Kate Morton this week. It's absolutely terrific. She doesn't do a lot of interviews. I am so excited that I got to do an interview with her. And I encourage you to listen to it or watch it. She also talks about her book within a book. She wrote an entire true crime book that goes through the pages of this book. So she gets points for writing not just one book, but two. These are recent interviews. We've got Kate, we've got Sue Patterson and Susan DeLello. They were authors that we got a lot of questions from our readers. House Is on Fire, Rachel Bainlam, Lisa Scottolini talking about loyalty. And really, folks, you've got to go out to her site and see the videos that she's done. I know that one of the book clubs that Lisa Hickman is involved with, last week they were showing the videos during their book club, and they have a huge book club with dozens of people in it. The House of You by Sadika Johnson and William Landay, All That Is Mine I Carry With Me. And this is just some that I've done this year. Okay, you're going to want to join us for our next Bookaccino Live book group event with Laura Dade. She has written the book, The Last Thing He Told Me. It's been #1 on the New York Times paperback list. It was #1 on the hardcover list. It is a Book Reporter Bets on pick. It's now in paperback, and it's an Apple TV limited series. And the series is going to end before we have this conversation with her. So if you're watching, make sure you catch up on the end, because I believe we're going to be talking about that as well as the book, and how she adapted it with her husband, Josh Singer, who is the Academy Award winner for writing the screenplay for Spotlight. So that is going to be a really fun evening. So mark your calendars for that one. Laura's so much fun. Our next Bookaccino Live book preview event, a book preview of books that are releasing from June 13th to July 4th, and a peek ahead of August. It's going to be on Wednesday, June 14th at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time. And sign up will be available on bookreporter.com later today. And anybody who has signed up for this will get a link to this video and also get a link to sign up for our next event. Okay. So for those of you who have joined us today live, hang on for a second. For the rest of you, we thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time for Book Reporter Talks To.